Hey guys, tonight we're heading deep into the jungle, not for danger, not for treasure, and definitely not for excitement. You found your way to a place where nothing moves fast, everything is slightly damp, and the silence has layers. You're arriving at a forgotten Mayan water plaza, space shaped by stone, shadow, and stillness. Right now, you're walking beneath a green canopy that filters the sky into fragments. It's hot, but not aggressive. It's the kind of heat that hugs instead of chokes. Cicadas murmur nearby, their rhythm part lullaby, part machinery. The path isn't paved, it's just old, packed down by centuries of footfall, softened by moss and broken here and there by tree roots with opinions. You duck under a thick vine shaped like a question mark and step into a clearing. And there it is, the plaza. Stone platforms frame a sunken courtyard, which may have once been filled with water, or not. No one knows for sure. It could have been a reflecting pool, a ritual bath, or just a very symmetrical place for serious conversations. This isn't Tickle, it's not Chichen Itza either. It's smaller, sleepier, a place they stopped drawing on maps once the vines got too bold. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're watching from in your local time. Always fun to see how far the mossy silence travels. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You breathe in. The air smells like wet limestone and leaf skin. It's the kind of scent that suggests you're not the first person here today, just the first one who brought questions instead of machetes. Underfoot. The plaza's flagstones are uneven, but patient. They've seen centuries of ceremony, collapse, and leaf litter. No one sweeps here, and that's fine. You walk slowly. Every few meters, another carved stone pokes through the moss symbols, worn down to size. A mainstream fact, Mayan plazas are often the civic and ceremonial heart of a city. While many featured temples and pyramids, some like this once centered on water features. These weren't decorative. Today, they were engineered. Rain catchment systems, aqueducts, and filtration channels made water collection a form of reverence. But this one feels more meditative. It's less urban planning. More, let's make a space where the gods can hear us think. There are no tourists here. It's no gift shop. Just the thick, green hush of a world that was never trying to impress anyone. You run your fingers along a low stone wall. It's slick with age, yet warm from the sun. Every groove feels deliberate, even the worn-down ones. A parrot calls out nearby, not screaming, just checking in. You reach the center of the plaza, broad, shallow basin, ringed by stone. It's dry now, but you can tell it once held water. Not a lot, just enough to mirror the sky. A fringe theory says the Mayans built some plazas this way not to store water, but to watch it, to reflect celestial patterns, to map the stars in puddle form. Historians still argue whether these features had functional or spiritual purposes. Were they reservoirs, sacred pools, sound stages for rain, gods? Maybe all three, maybe none. The jungle has kept most of its receipts to itself. Joke 1. You briefly consider starting a business called Renter Ritual, where people can book ancient spaces for awkward spiritual awakenings. You'd go viral once, then vanish in a puff of incense. You sit on a low step. A lizard darts across your foot and stops, like it's waiting for you to apologize. You nod. The lizard accepts. A breeze rolls through. Not much, just enough to rustle the treetops and send one single yellow leaf spiraling down like punctuation. You lie back, feel the stone under your shoulders, stare up through the green filter. A quirky detail. One early explorer wrote that Mayan plazas smelled of wet clay and forgotten thunder. He might have been delirious, or poetic, or both. But right now, you get it. More birds, some rustling, a soft plop of something falling into nothing. You close your eyes for just a moment. You imagine what this space looked like in its prime colorful banners, slow chants, bare feet slapping damp stone. Someone carrying a bowl of water like it contains the answers. And even though all that's gone, you realize the plaza hasn't stopped doing its job. It still holds space for breath, for memory, for... You decide this plaza has more emotional intelligence than most people on LinkedIn. You stay a while longer, then longer still, because sometimes the best part of history is just sitting inside it. Letting the quiet explain things you didn't know you were wondering. You're still lying there on stone, warmed by time, not sun. The plaza beneath you doesn't creak, doesn't shift, it just holds. Quietly, as it always has. A pair of butterflies flutters past. One lands near your hand, then thinks better of it. The other keeps spiraling up toward the treetops like it forgot something. The plaza breathes around you, not literally, of course, but tell that to your body. Just started sinking to its rhythm, whether you meant to or not. When you sit up, okay, everything is exactly the same, but also not. You see them now, the sunken shapes, not just one, but several wide stone depressions across the courtyard, like empty poles meant for the sky. They're almost too perfect to be accidental, but they're not flashy. The Maya weren't into theatrical fountains. These were sacred water basins, quiet ones, a mainstream fact. Some Mayan sites like Caracol, Calakmul, and Uxmal featured massive, sunken water features plazas engineered to fill during rain, holding not just drinking water, but cultural significance. They were designed with sloped floors and channels to collect and retain rainwater. These weren't pools for bathing, they were mirrors for the cosmos. And suddenly, you get it? These depressions weren't just for water, they were for reflection. Imagine this, a courtyard filled not with noise or people, but with pools of still water. No splashing, no voices, it's just silence and upside-down sky. You try to picture it, the moon floating in dark water at your feet, the stars doubled, priests walking around with torches that shimmer across both surfaces, the one underfoot and the one overhead. Joke one. You think about how awful your phone's selfie camera would look reflected in one of these. A teen. Decide. It's for the best. You rise and begin walking the edge of one of these stone bowls. Each curve is subtle, elegant. The design feels almost mathematical, but also deeply human. Like someone once ran their hands along these same ridges, smoothing them just a little, thinking, yes, this will hold the heavens. There's no trash here, no broken pottery, just a few stubborn weeds poking through cracks like nature's last attempt at graffiti. Quirky tidbit. One archaeologist proposed that certain water plazas were acoustically tuned. During heavy rain, the sound of droplets hitting the water and stone would echo in deliberate ways, creating ambient patterns for meditative purposes. No one can prove it. No one wants to disprove it. It's just plausible enough to be wonderful. You crouch beside one dry basin. There's a slight groove leading out from Etakana runoff channel. Not crude, engineered. The Maya, after all, were hydraulic geniuses. Even now, their stone channels work better than some modern gutters. You follow the channel, stepping over vines and one particularly bold frog who refuses to move. It leads you to another depression, this one deeper, framed by squat pillars. It feels different, heavier. You reach down, press your palm to the floor. Still warm, still dry. But you swear you can almost feel the ghosts of water pass drops that fell 1,000 years ago, okay? And never evaporated from memory. Historians still argue whether these plazas were part of larger water management systems or standalone ceremonial zones. Some believe they connected directly to underground cenotes, forming symbolic links between sky, surface, and underworld. Others say they were simply clever rain collectors. You lean against a stone pillar, watch as a line of ants marches up the side in perfect coordination, completely ignoring your existential presence. Above you, a bird lets out a sound like someone playing a flute with their nose. You nod in appreciation. You sit again, the bottom of one of the bowls this time. It's shallow enough that you don't feel buried. Just embraced. Everything's so quiet down here. The air changes. It doesn't move much. Sound dampens slightly. You could whisper secrets in here, and the wind wouldn't tattle. Joke, too. You briefly consider using this basin as a recording studio for an ambient lo-fi podcast called Mayan Moods. Just frogs, rain, and regretful obsidian traders. The sky above is still visible patchy blue between long strands of canopy. A few clouds drift by, reflected only in your imagination. But you know what this place was made for now. Reflection. Literal, spiritual, accidental. You lean your head back, let it rest on the curve of stone. And, for the first time all day, your thoughts stop performing. They just float. The plaza waits. No pressure, no push, just stillness. And maybe that's what these water courts really were. Not monuments, not reservoirs, but permissions. Permission to stop, to stare, to remember that the sky has an underside. You don't get up right away. The bowl of stone beneath you is oddly comfortable, not physically, of course. Your spine makes occasional protest noises, but emotionally, it's like sinking into the pause between two meaningful words. Eventually, though, your legs ask for variety. You climb out slowly, hands brushing the mossy rim for balance. The stone is dry, but feels damp anyway, like it remembers the rain, even when it's not here. You give it a small, appreciative pat. It doesn't say thank you. It doesn't need to. You begin to walk the outer edge of the plaza again, tracing a loose path to your own version of a Mayan ritual circuit, minus the headdress and sacred copal smoke. Though you wouldn't say no to a snack. The footpaths are faint, nearly erased by time, but you notice them. Trails smoothed by centuries of movement, like quiet signatures of the past. You step into one without thinking, and it guides you not with force, but with suggestion. A mainstream fact. Many Mayan plazas were designed with ceremonial processions in mind. Routes through these spaces were rarely straight. They often curved intentionally, reflecting cosmological beliefs. Movement through space was ritual itself, each turn symbolizing transformation or the passage between worlds. You take a right, turn, then a left, then find yourself back where you started, and you're not even mad about it. This place wasn't built for efficiency. It was built for experience. As you stroll, begin to imagine the people who once walked here. Some in feathers, some barefoot, some carrying jugs of sacred water, scooped from cenotes at dawn, others holding incense burners, trailing soft smoke that wound its way upward like a question for the gods. You try to imagine their faces, but the jungle keeps that part private. Joke 1. You briefly picture a priest tripping on his robe during a ritual and playing it off like part of the choreography. Timeless. The plaza opens up again. From this angle, the space feels different, wider, quieter. It's like it's watching you now instead of the other way around. You pause at what might have once been a seating tier-low steps, half buried, half inviting. You sit. Again, you've said a lot today, but that's kind of the point. This is a plaza for thinking, not doing. A small tree grows through one of the old stones, its trunk twisted like it's bowing apologetically. Accept its apology, just in case. In the stillness, you hear something. Wind, moving through narrow passages, making a low whistle. Not music, exactly. More like breath. Like the plaza exhaling after holding it in all day. A quirky tidbit. Some researchers have noted that Mayan courtyards and water features had acoustics that allowed even soft voices or whispers to carry unnaturally. Well, priests could be heard from one corner to another without shouting like the plaza itself wanted to help deliver the message. You whisper something just to test it. Your own voice sounds different, more certain, like someone else's wisdom borrowing your mouth for a moment. You consider whispering a secret, then think better of it. The plaza may be sacred, but it's also a notorious gossip. You rise and walk again. Each step brings you over faint ridges and into slight dips, nothing dramatic, just enough to make you feel like you're tracing an old memory. Historians still argue whether plazas like this were used daily or reserved for the big moments, eclipses, births, death rites, royal announcements, or the oh no, it's another drought festivals. Some argue they were centers of power. Others think they were humble community wells with delusions of grandeur. You take another slow lap. Birds move in the trees above, shaking loose a soft sprinkle of dried leaves that fall like confetti made of sighs. You find another depression, in a stone not round this time, but rectangular, with deep sides and strange grooves in the corners. You crouch again, peer inside. Maybe it was a bench, maybe an altar, maybe a very advanced place to wash fruit. Joke 2. You briefly imagine a scene where someone carves an exquisite ceremonial channel, and their cousin shows up with mangoes like, cool sink, bro. God. You step away. Now the sun has shifted noticeably. It's not sunset yet, but close. That warm gold is creeping back, casting long shadows and highlighting every crack in the stone. It's like veins. It's beautiful and faintly heartbreaking. You get the sense that the plaza likes this time of day the most, when it can be half seen, half guessed, when it's still too early for bats and too late for ambition. You sit one last time on a broad, flat step, facing the deepest water basin, and you wonder, were there ceremonies here that only worked if you believed hard enough, enough people showed up and whispered in the right order? Or did it always work, whether anyone showed up or not? Was the presence of humans a requirement or just a delightful accident? You don't know, but you're glad you showed up anyway. Asterisk. By now, your body understands the pace of this place. You no longer feel the need to hurry between things. Not here to cover ground or gather data. You're just here. Like a vine that happened to grow into the right shape. Like a shadow that forgot to leave. You rise slowly, dusting a bit of leaf litter from your legs, and begin moving toward a low terrace at the edge of the plaza. It's partly sunken, partly framed by short steps, and it seems to whisper, I held water once, and probably stories too. A mainstream fact. The ancient Maya had an incredibly sophisticated approach to water management. Many of their cities were built with integrated systems that channeled rainfall from rooftops and courtyards, called chaldrons. These weren't just practical, they were symbolic, connecting daily life to the underworld, or Shabalba, the mythic realm beneath the earth. You pause near what might have once been an entrance channel to one of these sacred storage spaces. The stone is grooved, sloped slightly downward. You kneel beside it and place your palm inside. It feels cooler here, the kind of cool that hints at depth. Imagine it, rain falling, funneling down through temple roofs, flowing along carved runnels, into these underground bellies of the city, liquid prayers, dropping, one by one, into darkness. You look around and notice something else. The plaza isn't flat. Subtle gradients slope towards certain spots, not by accident. This was planned. Rain didn't just fall here. It arrived with purpose. It was directed, welcomed, guided toward significance. A quirky tidbit at some sites. Archaeologists have found a lab. You don't know how long you've been here now? The light has changed and gentled the golden, slow. You could check your watch if you wore one, but somehow it would feel wrong. out of place, like asking a waterfall for its hourly rate. You stretch your legs and let your hand glide along one of the plaza's old walls. The stone is cool, gently pitted by time, like skin that spent too many years in the sun. It gives nothing away, just endures. You walk toward the far edge, where a staircase begins. Not a grand one, this isn't a palace, after all, but broad steps, shallow and worn. Their centers are smoothed by hundreds of thousands of feet, most of them bare. You step onto the first one and pause. There's a hum here, not noise, exactly, just an awareness. These stairs remember things, a mainstream fact. Many Mayan ceremonial sites featured staircases that led to temples, reservoirs, and raised viewing platforms. But some of these steps weren't routes to somewhere, they were the stage. Ritual dancers, messengers, and processional leaders moved deliberately up and down them, using each step as part of the ceremony. These weren't just transitions, they were part of the performance. You begin to climb. It's slow, intentional. You imagine others doing the same. Not rushing, not chatting, just moving. Each footfall a kind of sentence. You reach the top and find a long, low ledge that might have once been seating, or storage, or something else entirely. Joke 1. You briefly hope it wasn't a latrine, but decide it's too elegant for that. Then, remember, some castles had velvet-covered chamber pots, and realize, elegance isn't always a filter for function. You sit. From here, the entire plaza stretches before you. Sunken bowls, faint paths, tree-shadowed edges. It's not a grid. It's not a circle. Something else designed not for geometry, but for feeling. The breeze picks up, and with it, a sound almost inaudible. A whisper of footsteps. No dot leaves, just leaves. But for a moment, your imagination had other plans. You lean back and let your fingers trace the edge of the ledge. A chip in the stone catches your skin. It's not sharp, just sudden. A reminder that even in stillness, change happens. A quirky tidbit at some Mayan sites. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of musical stepstones that, when walked on in sequence, produced resonant tones. The acoustics varied with foot pressure, so a practiced walker could create rhythmic patterns during ceremonies. Think xylophone, but with ankles. You glance down. Your steps didn't sing, but maybe they whispered. You close your eyes for a minute, just to listen. Birds, dot leaves, maybe a lizard rustling through palm fronds with a very busy lizard agenda. Everything here moves slowly, except time. That part keeps going, but you're allowed to forget that. Historians still argue whether these plaza steps served religious or civic purposes. Some believe they were used only on holy days. Others think they functioned like ancient bulletin boards places, where the latest news or decisions were read aloud to the gathered community. Either way, they weren't just stairs. They were thresholds. You open your eyes and realize the sun's angle has changed again. Long shadows stretch across the plaza. It's starting to glow, stone edges turning amber, the leaves shifting from green to bronze. You stand, take a breath, then walk back down the staircase, 1 foot, 1 moment at a time. No ceremony, no audience. It's just you and the stone, acknowledging each other like old friends who haven't spoken in a while. But still, get it, joke 2. You consider giving the staircase a name, something respectful, like Gary. You decide against it, but make a mental note to refer to it as Gary anyway at the bottom. You pause and glance back up. The steps look different now. Not bigger, not smaller, just taller in memory. You continue walking, slow again, drifting toward a new corner of the plaza you hadn't explored yet. One less symmetrical, slightly crooked. You're drawn to it. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's just waiting for someone. Walks without hurrying, someone like you. You angle toward the far edge of the plaza where the lines break down a little, where the walls aren't quite square, and the trees lean in as if they're listening for gossip. This part of the site doesn't feel planned. It feels improvisational. The stone here is rougher, the symmetry softer. One platform juts out at a strange angle, and the ground is uneven beneath your feet. But the unevenness doesn't feel careless. It feels deliberate, like it was meant to guide water in odd ways, maybe confuse evil spirits with bad depth. Perception. You crouch near a low ridge and run your hand along a shallow groove cut into the rock. It curves, then zigzags, a channel, a conduit, not a straight one. It reminds you of a forgotten melody, one that meanders before resolving. Mainstream fact. The ancient Maya observed celestial events with remarkable precision, and some water plazas were aligned with astronomical patterns. Rainy season rituals, solstice events, and even Venus cycles were reflected in the layouts of ceremonial courtyards. Certain water features may have acted as instruments not just for reflection, but for measurement. You stand and try to make sense of the layout. You're not an archaeologist, but you have eyes, and those eyes are now drawn to a sequence of depressions in the stone, not quite bowls, not quite steps, more like calendar marks. What if this whole courtyard tracked something, not just water, flow, but time? You picture a rainy season beginning, water collecting in these basins in a specific order, each one filling as the weeks passed. A liquid clock. You smile at the thought, and suddenly the plaza feels less like a ruin and more like a timepiece that just ran out of minutes. Joke 1. You briefly imagine an ancient Mayan dad yelling, "We'll leave for the temple when the third bowl's full," not before. You walk the basin line slowly. Each one is slightly different. Depths vary. The rims aren't consistent. It's messy in a way that feels mathematical, but only to someone who knows the key. To everyone else, it's just elegant nonsense. A quirky tidbit. One researcher floated the idea that some of these plazas acted as seasonal sundials, not with shadows, but with puddles. As the rainy season progressed, the way water pooled in, the stone created a visible calendar. No one's replicated it. But the idea stuck around because, well, it's kind of poetic. You crouch again, dipping your hand into one of the depressions, dry but not empty. There's a faint shimmer on the stone, like a memory refusing to evaporate. You touch it and feel nothing, and also everything aligns. The kind of moment that only makes sense here, in this place, in this pace. You sit beside the depression and close your eyes. It's not dark yet, but it's getting quieter. The birds have stopped arguing in the canopy. The wind is gentler now. Even the bugs seem to know that this hour belongs to stillness. Historians still argue whether plazas like these were built in a single phase or evolved over centuries, layered by generations who added, adjusted, and reinterpreted the sites. Purpose. Was this a planned cosmological machine, or just a really clever series of architectural accidents? You open your eyes. The shadows from the trees now fall perfectly across the depression line, like they've been rehearsing all day for this exact performance. The plaza doesn't feel random anymore. It feels choreographed. You lie down on your side, cheek against the stone, watching the light crawl along the surface. One beam reflects off a bit of quartz embedded in the wall. It's enough to twinkle. You sigh. A long one. Kind your lungs didn't know they were holding dark choke too. You imagine bringing your laptop here and trying to explain to the plaza what a spreadsheet is. Both agree to never speak of it again. The trees sway. A pair of bats flicker past, barely visible. The plaza holds. You rest, because here time doesn't pass. It's pools, and tonight, you're the one reflecting. The plaza has fully exhaled now. Evening is wrapping itself around the stone like a shawl. The jungle turns indigo at this hour, the green disappearing first, then the gold. What's left is texture, temperature, and a stillness that folds inward. You push yourself up slowly. Your joints feel like they've been reset, less creaky, more contemplative, okay? As if the act of slowing down has rubbed a little oil into your bones. You start walking again, okay? Not with any destination, but with curiosity. Your steps are soft now, almost reverent. Even the crunch of dry leaves feels like too much. So you adjust. You step between them. You let the silence win. Near the northern curve of the plaza, you find what looks like a half-circle niche in a stone. It's not large, maybe a meter across, but it's perfectly curved, sheltered, shaded, even now. When the sun is nearly gone, you approach it like it might speak. A mainstream fact. Many Mayan plazas incorporated altars or niche shrines into their borders. Some were used to hold ceremonial items, obsidian blades, shell ornaments, or carved effigies. Others may have been symbolic representations of sacred caves mouths of the underworld, placed conveniently at ground level for easy deity access. You crouch near this one. Peek inside. The floor is smooth and slightly dished, like it once held something circular. Water, maybe, or a bowl of offerings. You imagine a priest or acolyte kneeling here, arranging flowers or maize kernels in perfect patterns, while reciting words that have since dissolved into the leaves. A tiny green frog blinks at you from the far corner, then hops out as if it had an appointment elsewhere. You nod respectfully. It's probably very busy. You reach into the niche and touch the back wall. It's cooler here still, that hasn't seen sun in days. There, faint etchings, barely visible. Not glyphs. Poor like fingernail trails. Joke 1. You briefly imagine an ancient teenager hiding here to avoid chores. No, Mom, I was definitely communing with the rain gods. You sit on the ground in front of the niche and let your back rest against a tilted slab. The stone feels alive, not warm. Exactly. But aware, a quirky tidbit. At certain sites, altars like these have been found to contain traces of cinnabar, a bright red mineral associated with both life and death in Mesoamerican rituals. Sometimes it was dusted across statues. Other times it was used to coat bones. Here, perhaps, it was used to paint the water red during a drought and offering, or maybe a message. You tilt your head and look up. Through the trees, the sky is a violet now, streaked with the last stubborn blues of day. Bats begin to flicker more frequently, and the cicadas return not with a vengeance, just with consistency. Their drone is hypnotic, a metronome for breath. Historians still argue whether these niche altars were for individual worship or part of larger public ceremonies. Were they like confessional booths for jungle priests, or miniature stages for gods too shy to attend the big rituals? No consensus. It's just ideas stacked like stones. You get up and dust yourself off again, but slower now. Everything is slower now. You begin another wandering path along the plaza's edge, occasionally brushing your hand against the walls. The texture shifts every few meters. Some parts are smoother, others rougher. One section feels like it was burned. Maybe it was. Or maybe it's just age and lichen in the right combination to mimic flame scars. You find another depression in the floor. This one's strange, oval, deep, and ringed with 3 vertical stone slabs, 2 upright. One toppled. You crouch again and trace the edge. This wasn't a seat or a step. This was something else. Joke 2. You imagine trying to use it as a bathtub, but with jungle frogs, insisting it's a community pool. You let them win. There's no obvious purpose here, which makes it sacred, because sometimes the most important parts of a site are the ones that make no sense at all. You sit near the edge and let your legs dangle in. Just stone, no water, but still. Your calves feel cooler, as if the memory of moisture lingers here like an echo. The jungle around you is darker now, the sounds softer. This is the part of the evening where even the insects are half whispering. You lean back and you wait, because this plaza always answers. It just doesn't use words. The stars arrive one at a time, punctual, but not eager. They slide into view with the casual grace of dancers who've done this before. You tilt your head back, counting only the ones you know, and then stop counting altogether. Because here, counting seems wrong. It's like trying to measure a dream. The plaza beneath you has cooled. The stones no longer radiate stored heat. Now they sip it from you, but not greedily. Just enough to remind you they were here long before you, and will be long after. You walk again, not far, just enough to feel your feet remember that they're part of you. The paths are harder to see. Now shadows blend, corners dissolve, but the curves of the plaza still guide you. You're not lost, you're being carried. A mainstream fact: Mayan cities weren't just day spaces. Rituals often occurred at night, particularly those involving stars, moon phases, or shadow play. Some plazas were constructed to capture specific celestial alignments, full moon reflections in water basins, Venus rising perfectly over a temple step, the kind of things that required millennia of observation and zero light pollution. You pause near a basin you passed earlier. It's darker now, not dry, just invisible. You kneel beside it and peer in, hoping for moonlight, but there's none. Yet, still, the surface reflects something. Not your face, not the stars, just a suggestion of depth, a whisper of meaning. You reach out, don't quite touch it. The air hovering above the basin is a degree cooler. That's all, but that's enough. You sit beside it again, like an old friend whose name you forgot, but whose silence you trust. A quirky tidbit: some Mayan plazas were said to sing during certain times of year, not because of sound, but because of light. The way shadows moved over specific carvings or steps at solstice or equinox made figures appear to animate, especially when reflected in water. This blending of architecture and illusion turned ordinary spaces into stories. You close your eyes and imagine a plaza lit by hundreds of small torches placed in niches, carried by figures in feathered robes. The flames would flicker across stone, bounce in water, double themselves in every reflective surface. This place would have glowed, not brightly, but with purpose. You open your eyes and see nothing like that. Just trees, stone, a single firefly joke. 1. You wonder if ancient Mayan planners ever considered installing dimmer switches. Your Majesty, I present, Mood Plaza. You lie back again, arms folded behind your head. There's a low mound of stone that fits the shape of your shoulders perfectly in accidental pillow, carved by 1,000 years of patience. The stars above aren't busy. They're just suspended, waiting for someone to notice. Historians still argue whether night rituals were exclusive to priests or if entire communities participated. Some suggest these gatherings were seasonal festivals. Others say they were invitation-only events, secret ceremonies kept from outsiders and even from commoners. What's agreed on is that night here mattered. The jungle shifts. You hear something? Not threatening, just wild. A branch cracking under weight, a distant whoop, the flutter of something overhead. That's not interested in you at all. You stay very still and realize you are not the center of this place. You never were. You are a visitor in the same way rain is a visitor welcome, but not needed. And that feels right joke too. You briefly consider asking the frogs for permission to be here, but they seem busy with their own conference, possibly on urban redevelopment strategies for mossier environments. You sit up again, slower this time. The plaza hasn't moved, but it feels steeper, like night has thickened it somehow. You glance toward the terrace wall and notice how the shadows fall, just so, as if someone arranged them. They probably didn't, but maybe someone once taught the trees how to lean at just the right angle. You walk toward a narrow corner where stone gives way to root. The plaza ends here, not abruptly, but gently. The jungle creeps in. Ferns nibble. At the last step, it's the edge of civilization dissolving into humidity and bark. And you sit again, one more time, because here, one more time doesn't mean you're finished. It just means keep watching. You've started to recognize the stone by touch more than sight now. Your hands trail over it gently, and in return, it offers you warmth from the day and cool from the night. Your fingers no more than your eyes at this hour. They trace grooves and ridges like braille from the past. You're near the edge of the plaza again, where things begin to fall apart. It's not in a bad way. It's just in the way all things do when left at the mercy of time and route. Vines have cracked parts of the wall, and a tree has grown straight through the old drainage channel. It doesn't care. Belongs here now. You crouch beside the tree. Its roots have curled around a square, slapped almost like they're hugging it. You brush some moss aside and reveal a carving beneath. Not a glyph, just a spiral. Crude, but deliberate. A mainstream fact. Spiral imagery appears throughout Mesoamerican art and architecture. In Mayan symbolism, spirals often represent water movement, breath, or portals to other realms. They were inscribed on walls, painted on pottery, even embedded into walking paths. Spirals were more than decorations. They were destinations. You trace the spiral slowly, clockwise, then counterclockwise. You wonder, was this a map, a prayer, a joke? It's probably all three. A breeze picks up, and a few leaves tumble into the plaza. They bounce lightly along the stone, like guests arriving late to a party they're not sure they're invited to. You shift positions and sit near the spiral, knees tucked, chin resting on your hand, just watching. The plaza is still, but your brain is wandering. Joke 1. You imagine explaining TikTok to an ancient Mayan water engineer. It's like a ritual dance, but 15 seconds long, and usually with cats. The jungle croaks and clicks around you, frogs and bugs and something else that might be a bird, or might be a lizard with opinions. You sit with it all. Let the sounds fill you. Let the empty parts of the plaza say things in a language you'll never fully learn, but still understand. A quirky tidbit: at some lesser-known Mayan sites, plazas were built over what appeared to be natural springs or underground acoustic chambers. When conditions were right, voices or footsteps echoed oddly. Some spots whispered back. Others carried sound far beyond expected range. Some believe this was intentional. It's part of a sacred soundscape design. You say a word, any word, it disappears immediately. But you like the idea that somewhere beneath the plaza, a stone heard you. Historians still argue whether smaller, fringe plazas like this one were auxiliary spaces or private sanctuaries. Were they for everyday use or specific lineages? Did the water systems here serve the entire settlement or just one family? Some of these structures are too modest for royalty. It's too complex for peasants. You don't try to solve it. You're not here to argue. You're here to notice. You stand up slowly and start walking again, this time toward the far eastern edge, where the ground gently slopes downward and the stone begins to disappear under moss and soiled. There was more here once. Structures now swallowed. Steps, now tree roots. The plaza didn't end. It faded. You walk that fade. It feels like memory. Joke 2. You step over a route and imagine it saying, "Careful, human. I was a staircase once." You reach a place where the stone gives up entirely. Earth wins here, but you stand anyway and look back toward the plaza. It glows, now only barely, but enough. The stars are stronger, the jungle quieter, your breath slower. You close your eyes and remember the path you took, the steps you counted without counting. You remember the basins, the grooves, the carved spiral. It's the frog who ghosted you without so much as a goodbye. And you feel it settle. This isn't a ruin. It's a rhythm still playing. Even if the song is slower now, you turn around and keep walking, not away from it, really, just through it, because the plaza isn't behind you, it's part of you now. The ground is softer here, more leaf than stone. You can feel the difference underfoot. One welcomes your weight, the other reflects it back. Your shoes, if you're still wearing any, are damp. Your ankles brush against ferns that don't move out of your way, as if reminding you this isn't your trail. You turn slightly. It's just enough to see the plaza still glowing behind you, its outline marked by stars and memory. But where you are now, this borderland is quieter still. You take a few more steps and pause. There's something here. Not a building, not a carving. Stone marker, half sunken and tilted like it's had a long day. You approach, crouch, and tilt your head. The stone leans just enough to throw the whole area off balance. You adjust your stance. It's not dramatic. It's not meant to be, but it's wrong, and that makes it important. A mainstream fact. Mayan sites often included steely, upright stone slabs used to commemorate dates, rulers, or celestial events. These were typically carved in astonishing detail, aligned with astronomical principles, and positioned precisely. But not all of them. Some steely are crooked. Some are blank. Some seem almost accidental. You run your hand along the stone surface. No glyphs, no figures. Just weathering, age, and a stubborn refusal to fall. It's a reminder, not all. History shouts. Some of it just leans. You sit beside the marker, back to its cool surface, and let your body settle again. The forest breathes around you. There's a rhythm here too, though this one's older than ceremony, older than cities, sleep and rot and growth. You look up. A bird flits between branches, maybe a parrot, maybe something wilder, screeches. Once, then stops. Joke one. You imagine it yelling, "This isn't even my final form," before disappearing like a myth. A breeze stirs the canopy, and light from the stars catches something in the dirt nearby. You brush leaves aside. A feather, long, iridescent, green, with a line of deep red near the tip. A quetzal feather. You hold it carefully. It doesn't feel like it should still exist. Not here, not now. But there it is. Perfect. A quirky tidbit. The quetzal bird, sacred to the Maya, was often associated with royalty, the god Quetzalcoatl, and the soul's flight after death. Its feathers were so prized they were traded across vast distances, sometimes more valuable than jade. They were never plucked from live birds, only collected after molting. It's a matter of honor. You turn the feather in your hand. It catches starlight, like it's remembering something. You don't keep it. You place it gently against the leaning stone and step back. It belongs here. Now, historians still argue whether feather offerings were formal parts of Mayan ceremonies, or deeply personal gestures left by individuals without witness. The record is incomplete. Some believe they marked transitions, births, deaths, changes in season. Others say they were just quiet acts of reverence, not for show. Just because. You glance back once more at the plaza, beyond the trees, and then forward into what looks like nothing but forest. But you know better now. You take another step. Joke two. You try to think of a modern equivalent of a quetzal feather. Your brain offers limited edition sticker pack. You respectfully decline. The air is thicker ahead. It's not unpleasant, just full of pollen, of moisture, of stories. You walk through it. No path, no destination, just movement and memory and moss. You duck beneath a thick branch draped in epiphytes. The moss brushes your head like a sleepy grandmother tucking you in, and you mumble an apology just in case. The ground here hums with a quiet kind of life, not buzzing, not chirping, just waiting. Your hand skims a wall again. It's different this time, painted, or it was. The colors are barely there, no faded reds, ghostly blues, an outline of something curved. You squint, trying to find the pattern. It's like staring at clouds. One minute, it's a serpent. The next, a wave. Or maybe just a memory pretending to be art. You sit down in front of it, brushing a few leaves away with the side of your foot. There's no plaque, no spotlight. It's just you and the wall. A mainstream fact. Many Mayan buildings, especially temples and elite residences, are painted in vibrant colors. Red, blue, green, yellow. The pigments were made from natural minerals and often bound with organic glue. Over time, most of it eroded, but under the right light, even now, you can sometimes catch the shimmer of ancient decisions. You lean in closer. The blue catches you first. It's not quite turquoise. It's not quite sky, just some rare in-between that refuses to pick a side. It's the kind of color you could fall into if you stared long enough. The red next to it is more hesitant just to blush, and then you see it, the faint curve of what might have been a figure, or a drop of water, or a feather, or all of them. The Maya didn't do simple symbols. One line could be three things at once. You sit cross-legged in front of the mural, and for a moment, you're not looking at the past. You're inside it. A quirky tidbit, the famed Maya blue pigment is still a mystery. Made from indigo and palygorskite clay, it resisted weathering like nothing else from the time. Some scientists still can't fully replicate it. It wasn't just painted, it was chemistry, ritual, and a little bit of magic. You reach out not to touch, just to hover your palm an inch away. Like warming your hands over an old campfire. It feels almost warm, but that might be your imagination, which is allowed. Joke 1. You imagine trying to explain Photoshop layers to the painter who stood here centuries ago. So, you're saying I can undo my brushstroke, ... with a button? Madness. Behind you, the jungle sighs. You lie back and stare up again. The stars are more insistent now. The Milky Way splashed across the canopy like a careless god spilled their powdered sugar. You wonder how many times this mural watched the sky blink. How many stories were whispered here? How many secrets sealed with pigment and brush? Historians still argue whether these murals were public storytelling devices or private devotional panels. Some think they were instructional. Others believe they were ceremonial, intended only for those who understood the visual language. A few wild theories suggest they were calendars, disguised as mythology. You don't try to decode it. You'll let it be exactly what it is, a beautiful puzzle that no longer needs solving. You sit up, rubbing a bit of stone dust between your fingers. It leaves a faint line on your palm, a blush of color that feels like borrowed time. You smile, joke 2. You whisper to the mural, "You still look great for your age." It doesn't respond, but a bird squawks overhead like it's rolling, its eyes on the mural's behalf. You stand again, carefully, almost with apology. The painted wall watches you go. Not with sadness, just with patience. It knows the sky better than you ever will. You continue walking, stepping softly now, like someone exiting a sacred theater. Not because the play is over, because the audience has become part of it. There's something about walking away from a painted wall in the jungle that makes everything feel staged. It's like you're stepping out of someone else's dream, but the curtains haven't quite closed yet. The ground crunches again beneath your feet. Dry leaves, bits of bark, occasional squelch of soft earth that lets you know the rain wasn't too long ago. You pause to smell it, damp and green and old. You move toward a dip in the terrain, where the trees open into a circular clearing. No more walls, just a broad, low space ringed with gentle mounds. As if the land decided to inhale once and never let it go. You step into the center. The silence changes here. It's deeper, heavier. not ominous, just intentional. You're standing in what might have been a performance space, or a garden, or a gathering circle for something you weren't invited to. A mainstream fact: many Mayan ceremonial plazas were multi-purpose, serving as marketplaces, gathering spaces, and ritual stages. Some even functioned as acoustic theaters. The shape and size of these circular or oval areas amplified sound voices, music, even footsteps, so a speaker didn't need to shout to be heard by everyone present. You clapped your hands once. The sound jumps, not echo exactly, more like a bounce. It returns faster than expected, softened by the dirt, but still crisp. You say a word aloud, just one, and it blooms around you. No one answers, obviously. But for a moment, you feel as though something is listening. Not a being, not a ghost, just the space itself. You wander to the edge where the mounds rise. There, barely there, but their rhythm is clear placed, not natural. And nestled between them, flat stones, benches, altars, or just seats for people watching something unfold. Sit on one and face the center again. A quirky tidbit: at some Mayan sites, ritual ball courts were not always rectangular, while the iconic eye-shaped courts dominate most discussions. Smaller communities sometimes used irregular fields or circular courts, adapted to the land, or repurposed for hybrid ceremonies that mixed sport with dance, storytelling, and even diplomacy. You close your eyes and imagine a scene here. The drums low and steady, the dancers barefoot, wrapped in feathers and painted with ash, the elders seated in these same mossy seats, silent, nodding, the air thick with smoke and sap and anticipation. And above it all, the jungle holding its breath. Joke 1. You imagine one dancer tripping mid-spin, covering smoothly, and later telling everyone it was part of the choreography. You smile, 'cause of course it was. The dirt beneath you is cool, not cold, just enough to ground you. You dig your fingers in a little, letting the texture remind you that all performance spaces return to silence eventually. Even Broadway dims its lights. Even sacred plazas take naps. Historians still argue whether smaller performance spaces like this were built first, precursors to the larger, more grandiose temples, or if they were add-ons for secondary rituals. Some believe these were community-centered, focused on oral tradition and memory sharing rather than divine petition. Others argue they were training grounds where younger priests or dancers practiced before taking the main stage. You rise again, brushing the dirt from your palms. Something catches your eye at the base of one mound, a bit of carved shell, half buried. It's smooth and white, almost glowing in the dark. You pick it up and feel the grooves, lines, curves, decorative, not utilitarian. A pendant, a game token, story waiting for someone with more time. Okay. You place it back exactly where you found it. The plaza nods. INVISIBLY. Joke 2. You whisper, "Don't worry, wasn't planning on opening a souvenir stand." Okay. The wind seems to approve. You take one last loop around the space, letting your eyes adjust fully to the dark now. The moon has risen enough light to give every stone a shadow, every mound a mystery. You're not trying to solve it, you're just trying to walk it. Right, so you do, and then you leave the circle, the way you came, with quiet steps and a slower breath. As you step beyond the circle, the terrain begins to slant, barely noticeable at first, but you feel it in your ankles, the way your posture shifts to compensate. The forest, too, seems to lean. Trees on your left stretch taller than those on your right. Even the vines seem to favor one direction, like they're following something unseen. You keep going. The slope becomes clearer, and with it, the sound of water, soft at first, just a murmur. You pause, listen. Yes, definitely water. You follow it. The trees part a little, and before you, Nestled into the gentle valley lies a low stone trench. It's narrow, only a foot or two wide, but runs a clean line through the undergrowth. Sure enough, a trickle flows through it. Not fast, not showy, just steady. A mainstream fact. The Maya built extensive water management systems, canals, aqueducts, reservoirs, using only stone tools and muscle. In places like Tikal and Palenque, these systems redirected seasonal rainfall into underground cisterns or ceremonial baths. Some were simple, others astonishingly complex. All of them mattered. You crouch near the trench and dip your fingers in. Cool, almost startlingly so. Considering the humid air around you, it runs clear, threading around mossy rocks, curving gently with the land. You imagine how much planning it took to build something so simple and precise, all to make sure a trickle like this could find its way home. You walk alongside it. The canal bends with a slope, cupped on both sides by carefully stacked stone. Some of the masonry has slipped, of course. Trees don't ask permission before growing, but enough of it holds that you can still follow the original path. A quirky tidbit in some ancient Mayan cities. Water channels weren't just functional, they were symbolic. Water flowed through plazas like veins through a body. Some believe these canals were used in rituals, perhaps even for sending floating offerings, flowers, feathers, small carved tokens drifting toward sacred wells. You imagine placing a petal here, letting it float downstream like a message. Who would it reach? You trail your hand through the stream as you walk, fingers skimming just below the surface. Every few steps, your fingertips catch on a change in flow, places where the water splits slightly, or deepens, or stutters across hidden debris. And then, ahead, a small basin, not man-made, natural, but the Maya found it and made it part of the system. You can tell there's shaping here. Stone edge has been carved smooth, and beside it, a small channel enters, another exits. The water rests here before continuing, like breath between thoughts. You sit on the edge and watch it swirl. Not fast, not dramatic, just circular. Joke 1. You picture a Mayan engineer telling their apprentice, look, if the water's not swirling, it's just being rude. The sky is almost entirely dark now, but the moon is bright. It catches the surface of the basin perfectly, lighting up the swirl in silver and shadow. You could sit here for hours. Maybe you already have. Time's weird in places like this. Historians still argue whether these smaller basins were part of day-to-day utility or had ceremonial functions. Some say they were used for washing sacred items. Others believe they were reflective mirrors used in divination or astronomy. Hey, it could be both, or neither, or something we've stopped knowing. It's how to ask. You lie back on the grass beside the basin, your ear close enough to hear the gentle gurgle as water exits down the channel. It's like a lullaby with no melody, just motion. Joke 2. You think, if I had a soundtrack to my life, I'd want it to sound like this stream, but maybe with a frog percussion section. The air cools slightly. You pull your arms around yourself and watch the branches overhead sway. The moonlight flickers through leaves like it's skipping stones across your vision. You breathe with the basin. Slow in, slow out, like the water, like the plaza. Like whatever this whole place once was and still is. When you finally rise, it's with the care of someone leaving a friend's porch late at night. Not wanting to disturb the house asleep, step away from the water basin slowly, backtracking just far enough to pick up the canal's path. Again, as it continues its gentle descent through the undergrowth. The jungle is denser here. Roots crawl over the old stones like lazy snakes. The water's still moving, but you get the sense that it's searching now its line, wobbling slightly, meandering between rocks and low brush. You follow, feet softer than before, as though the ground itself asked you to be quieter. The canal curves again, and this time it stops. dead ends into a shallow pool. It's not a mistake, it's designed. A large oval basin, maybe 10 feet across, ringed by what look like shaped stones though. Worn so smooth, it's hard to tell where nature ends and intention begins. At the far side, the faintest outline of stairs descends into the water. You stand at the edge and look down. It's not deep, maybe waist high at the center, clear enough to see the dark silt at the bottom and a few leaves drifting like tiny boats. Mainstream fact: the Maya constructed bathing pools, sometimes called aguadas, for both practical and spiritual use. Water purity was important for ceremonial cleansing. These pools were often fed by rain channels or underground springs, and access was sometimes restricted to elites, priests, or those undergoing rites of passage. You imagine someone standing at the top of those stairs, ankle deep, holding their breath, not for drama, for respect. You step down one stair. The stone is slick with moss, but not dangerous. Another step. The water laps at your foot, welcoming. You stop there, not entering all the way, just enough to feel it. Cool, patient, like it's been waiting since the last coot left. A quirky tidbit: some aguadas were discovered to have layers of intentionally placed clay beneath them, natural filtration systems that kept water cleaner longer. In at least one case, researchers found pollen from specific flower species sprinkled in the sediment, suggesting ritual fragrance was a part of the bathing experience. You lean forward and inhale. There's no perfume now, just the clean smell of water, earth, and time. And somehow, that's more calming. You sit on the step with your feet submerged, ankles swaying lazily like aquatic pendulums. The water clings to your skin, not quite letting go with each motion. A bird chirps overhead. A splash somewhere to your left. Probably a frog dismounting with style. Joke 1. You imagine a whole secret society of Mayan frogs using this pool after hours. Membership by croak only. You lean back on your hands and let the quiet do what it does best: settle, saturate, soften. Historians still argue whether these pools were used daily or only during specific calendar events. Some suggest the steps were part of purification, right, symbolic descents into sacred waters before rituals. Others wonder if these were spaces for rest, reflection, or even social bathing. It's an ancient version of the community hot spring. You like the ambiguity. You like that nobody knows. You like that here, in this hush of stone and water, everything is allowed to be multiple things: a mirror, a memory, a mayhem frog jacuzzi. Joke 2. You imagine one ancient bather slipping and muttering, "Well, there goes my divine dignity." You stand slowly and let the water drip from your calves. It doesn't rush. It lingers, like it knows you don't get to stay. You climb the steps back to the edge and look once more across the surface. The pool is still, and somehow fuller for having met you. You nod, say nothing, and move on, because the night hasn't finished unfolding yet. The trail becomes more abstract, now less a path and more a hunch. Roots cross each other like tangled thoughts. Ferns brush your knees with the gentle persistence of someone who wants to be remembered but doesn't want to interrupt. You keep moving. The ground slopes again, not down this time, but up slow and shallow, like the land itself is exhaling after holding a secret too long. It's not steep, just steady. The way a temple platform might rise if it had forgotten it was a temple. At the top, you arrive at a clearing so quiet it feels rehearsed. The trees encircle it perfectly, not touching the inner ring of mossy soil. No stone, no ruins, just space. You step into it and stop. You found the plaza without stones. Mainstream fact: not all Mayan plazas were constructed of carved stone. In some regions, especially near sacred caves or springs, open-air ceremonial spaces were left unpaved deliberately, blending architecture with nature. These were often tied to agricultural or rain rituals, spaces where barefoot contact with earth was part of the process. You stand still for a long moment, letting the ground speak. It doesn't say anything loud, just here. So you sit, cross-legged in the center, palms resting on your knees, spine soft but upright. There is no wind, no birdsong, no frogs holding conferences. Even your breath seems to hush itself. This place isn't about spectacle, it's about pause. A quirky tidbit: some of these earthing, ceremonial spaces were planted with specific moss or grass varieties that glowed faintly under moonlight, natural bioluminescence, or moisture-induced sheen. It gave the illusion of the earth lighting up during rituals. No artificial torches needed. Just night and dew and biology. You press your fingers into the moss. It gives easily, like memory foam trained by centuries of footsteps. When you lift your hand, the imprint stays for a moment before vanishing. You think, maybe that's the point, to touch and not leave. Arc joke 1. You wonder if ancient Maya ever rolled out the red moss carpet for their VIP guests. Ah, the chief high priest has arrived, please. No sandals on the moss. You lie back and let the night close in. The stars above this plaza seem closer. The moon, less busy. You swear you can feel the earth turning just a little beneath your spine. There's no wall here, no paint, no basin, but it's as sacred as anything you've seen tonight. You wonder if anyone was crowned here, if any child took their first steps here, if someone once kissed someone else here and thought, this is where it begins. Historians still argue whether such unpaved plazas were primary spaces or spillover for larger gatherings. Some see them as peripheral. Others believe they were the original sacred ground undisturbed, because that was the point. Even now, many aren't mapped because they hide so well under trees in silence. You stay longer than you meant to. Maybe you don't even know how long. Time in moss plazas runs sideways. Eventually, you rise, slowly, carefully, like standing from a dream you're not quite done having. Joke 2. You brush your clothes off and whisper, sorry for sitting on the sacred glomos. 5 stars would reflect again. You take a final glance across the empty space. It nods back quietly, and you begin to walk again, past the trees, the roots, the hush. But now, each step feels like a continuation of a sentence you didn't realize you were writing. You descend the far side of the mossy rise. Your steps begin to echo faintly, first in your mind, then in the air around you. It's subtle. It's bounce to your breath, a softness in the way your soles strike something firmer beneath. The fallen leaves, stone again. The ground flattens, the trees thin. You're entering another plaza, but this one's different, wider. Exposed. Moonlight spills across open ground, and in the middle, a perfectly square depression, maybe 30 feet across, maybe more. It's hard to tell with all the vines curling over the edges like curious spectators. Mainstream fact: the Maya engineered massive sunken plays, depressions shaped into the earth and sometimes lined with plaster or stone. Many of these were water features built to collect rain during the wet season and retain it for months. Scholars call them aguadas, reservoir courtyards, or water plazas. They were not merely utilitarian, they were civic and spiritual spaces. You walk along the rim carefully. Some of the stone retaining walls have collapsed, now cradling jungle plants like old bones holding bouquets. But the square shape remains striking in its intentionality. You descend slowly along a carved ramp. The incline is gentle enough that you wonder who designed it to feel like a welcome, not a command. At the bottom, your footsteps dull again, dirt silt, residue of long-forgotten rains, and at the center, a drain, a single carved channel leading away from the middle, like a navel to some buried hydrological system. You crouch beside it, It's dry now, but you know what? It could have been. A mirror. A pool. A stage. A quirky tidbit. Some Mayan water plazas were reportedly used as reflecting pools during astronomical events. When filled, they provided a view of the night sky inverted in water used possibly to track star movement, mark seasons, or create the illusion of gods dancing in the liquid heavens. You lie back, directly in the center of the depression, and imagine the plaza full of rain, still, black, vast, a perfect square of sky captured in stone. You stare upward, now, with no water, but the stars don't mind. They shine either way. Joke 1. You imagine some ancient priest whispering, "The stars are aligned, but I forgot my ceremonial paddle," and everyone awkwardly waiting. You shift to your side and let your hand rest against the dry channel, even empty. It speaks of rain, of planning, of faith in cycles. Historians still argue whether these water plazas were communal tools, royal luxuries, or ritual spaces only accessed by the elite. Some believe they doubled as public forums, while others suggest they were reserved for sacred processions. The sheer labor required to build one implies importance, but exactly what kind remains blurry. You sit up and trace a square in the dust. 4 corners. It's 4 directions. Simple geometry, but heavy with meaning. The Maya didn't just build structures. They inscribed cosmology into the landscape. This plaza wasn't just dug out of dirt, it was carved from an idea. You run your fingers along the wall. Near one corner, a carved stone juts out slightly, an old bench or step. You climb up and sit on it, knees drawn, watching the far edge of the plaza disappear into moonshadow. You wonder how many gatherings happened here, how many feet trampled the ground you're sitting on, how many people stood in silence like you, are now waiting for something to rise. Joke 2, you mutter. I built one of these in my backyard, but my landlord won't even let me hang wind chimes. You rise again and walk a full square around the inner edge. One side, then the next, then the next. Each corner brings a slightly different breeze. Each step marks a memory of someone else's forgotten day. You reach the ramp again and descend, slowly, back, above ground, back into the quiet reach of jungle. And as you walk away, you think, some stories aren't told in words or glyphs. Some are etched in angles, in patience, in the shape of silence. You leave the square depression behind and re-enter the jungle, though now it feels less like entering and more like returning. The trees seem closer together, not in a threatening way, more like a gentle herd forming around you, keeping pace. A low hum filters through the leaves, not mechanical, not natural, somewhere in between. You pause. It's bees. You can't see them, but you can feel the air pulse faintly, like the soft vibration of a violin string before it's played. The sound leads you forward, past a curve. In the tray lift, it can still be called that tanned into a grove that smells like honey, bark, and hot stone. And there, at the center, a hollow tree trunk set atop a squat stone pedestal. A beehive, but not just any. You've stumbled into a melipinary. Mainstream fact: the ancient Maya domesticated stingless bees melipona beach thousands of years ago. Te created dedicated melipinaries to house hives in carefully carved log structures or ceramic cylinders. Honey from these bees was used for medicine, ritual, and trade. It was sacred. You approach the log gently, half expecting it to hum a greeting. The bees are quiet today, most likely resting, or maybe just sensing your reverence. You crouch low, watching them slide in and out of the trunk like tiny monks returning to a chapel. A few hover near your face. They don't sting. They can't. You nod to them anyway. Respect matters. Quirky tidbit: Melipona beechai honey was often used in fertility and healing ceremonies. The Maya believed it had spiritual properties, capable of connecting the body to the divine. specimens. Sometimes consumed it in ritual drinks. Some even buried honey jars with the dead as nourishment for the soul's journey. You glance around and notice more logs, spaced evenly in a half circle. Some cracked, some mossy, one still bearing faint etchings, perhaps a family crest or a bee god's name, now lost to time. You sit on a flat stone, facing the hives, and you just listen to the buzz tot, too. The leaves rustling to the stillness that isn't really still. Choke 1. You imagine an ancient beekeeper whispering, "Yes, I'm a priest of vibes." The honey scent deepens as the air warms slightly. Even in darkness, the grove feels golden. There's no nectar for you, no ritual to perform, but still you feel fed. A small bowl sits overturned near one hive, half buried in leaves. You brush it clean, it's ceramic, smooth, and still smells faintly sweet. A serving vessel, maybe? Or an offering. Historians still argue whether meliponaries were communal resources or reserved for high-status individuals. Some evidence points to household-level beekeeping, while other finds suggest centralized honey distribution tied to temples or healer priests. As always, the truth may be somewhere delightfully in between. You place the bowl back where it was and stretch your legs. The bees pay you no mind. You're just another visitor in their long, unbroken timeline. Joke 2, you whisper, "No offense, but your honey would totally outsell maple syrup if you had branding." A leaf falls politely in response. Eventually, you rise and follow the buzz back into silence. The trees close behind you with no ceremony, but with the distinct satisfaction of a chapter finished. Your fingers still smell faintly of bark and nectar. Your footsteps feel lighter, and you start to wonder how many kinds of sacred exist, at least one more than you thought yesterday. The path meanders now, slouching lazily between trees that have grown into odd, lopsided shaped trunks, twisted by wind, roots hunched like knuckles. You find yourself walking at a slower pace, not out of caution, but curiosity. Everything here seems to be leaning in to tell you something, or nothing. It's hard to say. Up ahead, the land flattens into a field of uneven ridges. At first, you think it's erosion. Then you see the pattern, rows, deliberate, parallel ridges with shallow troughs. Between them, like someone combed the earth with a slow, wide rake. Some are overgrown, others still exposed, cracked like ancient skin. You've stumbled into a forgotten chinampa field, a mainstream fact. The Maya developed raised field agriculture in wetland areas called chinapas, or bajos, centuries before modern irrigation. These ridged fields increased drainage, reduced flood damage, and allowed for year-round planting. They often featured complementary canals and were especially vital near seasonal lagoons and river edges. You walk along one of the ridges. Your feet squish slightly moisture, still trapped in the dark soil below. The trough beside you holds a faint glimmer of water, and in the moonlight, it almost looks like silver thread sewn through a patchwork quilt. It's beautiful, functional, completely overgrown, but undeniably alive. A quirky tidbit: archaeologists have found fish bones, frog skeletons, and even turtle shells buried in these ridges of evidence that the Maya used the ecosystem itself as a food web. Some chinampas were intentionally flooded to encourage aquatic species, creating an integrated farm and fishery system thousands of years before permaculture became a TED Talk. You crouch near the water, watching a bug skim the surface with all the confidence of a jet ski. You resist the urge to poke your finger in. You don't need to disturb it. Instead, you run your hands across the dry earth of a neighboring road. It's thick with plant roots, some wild, some suspiciously symmetrical. Corn, maybe. Or something that once aspired to be corn before the jungle said, "No thanks." You sit between two ridges and let your back rest against a tilted stone marker half swallowed by weeds. It doesn't say anything, no glyphs, no carving, but it was clearly placed. Maybe to mark territory. Maybe to remember someone. Maybe just to remind future passersby that even farming can be sacred. Joke 1. You imagine an ancient farmer shrugging and saying, I don't need a temple. I've got a yield. Above, clouds drift lazily across the moon, casting and recasting shadows over the field. You watch them pass, like moving, thoughts quiet, slow, indifferent. There's a piece here that doesn't beg for attention. It just is. Historians still argue whether these race-filled systems were managed communally or by elite landowners. Some chinampas were found close to residential areas, others deep in wetlands, accessible only by canoe. The scale varies wildly, suggesting a decentralized approach, small patches feeding individual families, others supporting entire temple complexes. You stretch your legs out into the trough. It's cool, soft, and faintly damp, and you wonder how many hands once pressed seed into this very soil. How many mornings were spent under the sun, checking water levels, listening for frogs, praying for cloud cover. Joke 2. You picture a teenage Mayan muttering, Mom, I don't want to weed the ritual corn again. You lie back, arms out, like you're trying to hug the whole field. The ridges rise beside you like gentle waves, and, for a moment, you imagine the earth as a sleeping giant's back, breathing slow, steady, and full of patience. You close your eyes and feel it breathe beneath you. Eventually, you sit up from the ridged field, brushing bits of soil from your arms, like someone waking from a nap that was deeper than expected. The kara has shifted again, thicker now, damp with the kind of humidity that settles on your skin like a shawl. Not heavy, just full. You stand, and from this slight rise, you spot a faint shimmer in the distance. Water, not a trickle this time, a proper body. You follow the faint glint, weaving between trees and vines, stepping carefully over crumbled walls and half-buried stones that no longer know what they supported. As you get closer, the air cools, the buzzing fades. The forest steps back, and then you're there at the edge of a wide, still lagoon. A mainstream fact: the Maya often built cities around natural cenotes, lakes, and lagoons, using them not just for water supply but for ceremony, astronomy, and even political performance. Some lagoons were reshaped with stone embankments and artificial islands, early forms of engineered waterfronts. This one seems untouched, yet undeniably observed. You step to the edge and crouch. The water is so still, so clear, you can see the rounded stones below the surface, some discolored, others streaked with algae. Dragonflies pause in midair like poorly rendered animations. Don't you find a flat stone near the shoreline and sit, not to analyze, not to name, just to be a quirky tidbit? In some Maya myths, water bodies were portals to the underworld Chibaba. Especially still or reflective waters were considered mirrors between worlds. Rituals involving water often took place at night, when the stars align with their reflections on the surface, creating a sort of symmetrical gate. You lean forward and see yourself reflected in the black glass of the lagoon. Not perfectly, not clearly, just enough to remember you exist. Then the image shifts, ripples from a distant fish, or maybe a whisper of wind, and the reflection dissolves into 1,000 tiny constellations. You blink and stare at the water again, unsure whether the stars are above or below. Joke 1. You whisper, okay, but if something grabs my ankle, I'm officially retiring from archaeological tourism. Hearing glides low across the surface, trailing silence behind it. You follow its path until it disappears behind a patch of reeds taller than you, and for a moment, the whole world feels paused. Not frozen, not waiting, just pausing. Historians still argue whether lagoons like this were natural, sacred spaces, or became sacred because of the civilizations that formed around them. Chicken or egg, spirit or settlement. Some point to myths that predate architecture. Others argue that engineering created the meaning. Either way, the water remembers more than we do. You lie back on the stone, arms tucked beneath your head. The coolness seeps in slowly. You can hear the faint sound of frogs now. Maybe it's the same frogs from the Plaza. Or maybe they're just passing through. Joke 2. You murmur, frogs have better travel itineraries than I do. You don't close your eyes. Not yet, because there's something about this lagoon, this water, this held breath of a place that makes you want to stay awake for just one more minute, even if nothing happens, even if nothing ever did. Because not everything sacred was noisy, and not everything forgotten was unimportant. You rise slowly from the flat stone by the lagoon, joints creaking just enough to remind you that even in stillness, time passes. The forest breathes behind you, vast and unchanged, and the water in front of you holds its mirror flawless, unimpressed. Endless. You follow the shoreline now, not because you have somewhere to be, but because movement feels like part of the ritual. The soft squelch of moss under your feet, the quiet crunch of fallen seed pods, the distant flap of something winged moving through moonlight. The trees thin again, briefly, and you see it. Up here, half-rooted, mostly sunken, built of wood too, stubborn to dissolve entirely. It's just a few beams still reach out into the lagoon like fingers trying to remember their grip. A single upright post leans sideways, bearing the weight of nothing but its own memory. You walk to it, carefully. Place your palm on the wood, still solid, still here. A mainstream fact. Some Mayan settlements included wooden docks and landing platforms, especially in areas with canoe traffic. These weren't just economic, they were ceremonial. Arrivals and departures were often ritualized. Some priests even performed blessings as travelers left by water, ensuring safe passage through both physical and spiritual realms. You step onto what remains of the dock. It shifts under your weight. It holds. You sit near the edge, legs dangling, the water just below your feet. And you imagine a canoe pulling up here, slender, polished, with someone important seated at the bow, head bowed in reverence or fear, or both. Maybe you, maybe not. You look out across the lagoon, and, for a second, it feels like the far shore is moving, just slightly, like the world is exhaling through its teeth. A quirky tidbit. Some late classic Mayan cities built ritual causeways under shallow water roads that disappeared just below. The surface used only during processions. Walking them would have felt like gliding across a mirror, or into one. You lean forward, peering into the water. There's nothing there now. Just your own feet. Just your own weight, pressing quietly on old wood. Joke 1. You whisper, honestly, if this dock collapses now, it's probably because I overthought it. A frog croaks in the reeds nearby. You nod. Valid. Historians still argue whether these final spaces, piers, liminal zones, were meant as beginnings or endings. Were they places to depart from, or places to arrive at? Were they thresholds, stages, graves? No one agrees, which makes them the most human structures of all. You lie back once more. The dock is crooked, and your spine bends strangely, but you don't mind, because this is where it ends or begins, or neither. The stars above flicker, and you wonder if they've noticed you. They probably have. Joked, too. You mumble, please don't send an alien probe. I'm not wearing my ceremonial poncho. You close your eyes. The sounds of water, wind, and frogs blend into a single breath. Your breath, the forest's breath, and everything that ever mattered. All at once,